Hey, and welcome back to this week's episode of Trauma Cupcakes.
So, John, your birthday's right around the corner,
It is. I'm gonna be 32 question mark,
huh?
and I have graciously received a gift from you guys already this year, which is a bag of Norsic runes, which is specifically, I think, the full alphabet. Um, I have been looking through the bag. There is one piece that has no marking on it, and I've never seen that. So if you
It's
guys
just
know, please
blank.
let me know. It's just blank.
Oh, that's kind of interesting.
So, well, there's also two on here that I do not recognize. I'm actually pulling it up right now. That I don't recognize from the alphabet, and I know that there's a bunch of different markings. So I'm wondering if maybe I just haven't seen these markings in a specific type of alphabet, because I think they call it the Elder Futhark alphabet,
Uh-huh.
and so I'm just not seeing these two anywhere.
I think it's interesting that there's just a blank rune. It's kind of ominous. Like, what is this?
The
What?
blank rune might be like wild card.
It's it's
Yeah.
whatever I want it to be, like in Scrabble.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you had mentioned before that one of the symbols were really kind of um, important to you, or symbolic for you, and it just gave me the idea that it would be really, really cool to get you a set. And Reliker was the one who's like, it's got to be bones, because
Yeah, has to
I
be bones.
I was going to get you like this black crystal with like etching in gold or whatever, and he goes, no, it must be bones.
He knew. He knows. Yeah, it's really cool to use for people who don't really know this stuff, because I don't really talk about like my personal beliefs and all that stuff. I don't like to
Hmm.
unlike certain religions, shove it down people's throats. So I just don't talk about it. But like each rune is generally associated with a Norse god. So like one of the Aesir or one of the Vanir, I believe.
Hmm.
So like oh god, I don't know it all offhand right now, but
Hmm.
like there's certain symbols like Thor, Odin, Idun, Freya, all that stuff.
So is it kind of like a new thing for you? Like, are you learning more about it, or is something that you kind of just intuitively feel? You know, like you don't know everything about it, but it just feels right to you. I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Uh Both. It's one of those things where I have followed it for a long time, um, but maybe in the last few years I've really gotten more into believing and really going with it and utilizing religion in some form of way, right? Like
Hmm.
maybe it's just because I'm getting older, but yeah, no, it's I don't know. It brings me comfort in some ways because, as I've mentioned before, I am wildly uncomfortable with the Christianity idea of God, where they're just being one guy or
Yes.
woman, and then
Hmm.
just them making everything. That just makes me wildly uncomfortable.
I
Just one person with all powers is I don't like the idea of that.
I think it's extremely beautiful to have this belief that it's shared and among different things. I mean, even in my faith, for example, uh, the indigenous from where I'm from had many deities. Like for there was a spirit, I guess similar to Shinto, where there's a spirit in everything. Animism, I mean, that everything living has a spirit, and you honor that spirit, right? I think
Yeah,
that's far makes far more sense to me, and kind of creates more respect to things around you and understanding and empathy versus just like, if I'm a butthole to people, I'm gonna go to this fiery place below. But if I do all of these 10 things, then I'm good. I got a ticket to the guy upstairs.
yes, it's as I like to say, if you need an imaginary person in the sky to be a good person, you might not be a good person.
Exactly.
I don't have a fear of going to hell or Valhalla or heaven or anything like that with this belief. It's not a, if I'm a good person, then Odin will bless me. No, it's just You don't. I don't. That has nothing to do with it. Whether you're, like the theory is like if you die in battle, you go to Valhalla, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the issue is that like as time has progressed, the term battle and the way we live currently don't mix, right?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of like issues with that and how people want to interpret it and people how they want to believe it. So that there's I like stuff like that though, where it becomes like more on like how do you wish to interpret it? Because there's no wrong way for you to interpret something when it comes to these forms of like religion or mythological beliefs.
Raliker, what do you think about, like, with your faith? Do you have something similar when it comes, or your spiritual practice, religion? Is it similar to kind of like a lot of different people or different deities? Do you not have a belief in anything? I mean, what's your take on it?
Kind of a mishmash of everything. There's little bits of different religions that I all feel connected to, but nothing really specific. Like everything has an energy, for the most part a divine purpose. Right place, right time, things happen, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I mean,
I agree.
there was somebody, I remember, it's a horrible example, but there was somebody on Jerry Springer.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, he used to have actual serious shows, and then it got worse and worse throughout the years. But he brought in somebody who said that they had contact with aliens, right? And what she was saying is, when she went there, these aliens said that they were actually God. And somebody in the audience had said, well, what does God look like? And the person had answered is, depending where you're from, this person would turn into what you would see as Jesus. Another person would see you as Zeus. Another person would see you as like Shiva. And they would say all of these different gods, and they laughed at her. But if you think about it, it doesn't actually sound that horrible to believe that God or Creator or whoever you believe in turns to what would make more sense to you. Right? Because us being humans, or at least what I feel like with Christians, they identify with this person as being their God, but it doesn't look the same to somebody, for example, who is from India or from someplace in Asia. It's not that strange to think that why wouldn't God look like different to whoever they're speaking to? Is that really that strange to think about?
Yeah, God's visual imagery would be transmutable to the people viewing it.
Not to mention how they said that they found out now that most representations of Jesus Christ, where he's like this lighter skinned white dude with the hair, was actually, I think, like the gay lover of the painter.
Yeah.
I know it was one of the Ninja Turtles, but I'm not sure which one. If it was like, I think it was Michelangelo, but he modeled
Michelangelo, Raphael, Donatello,
Leonardo.
And we know those because of the. Well, it would be Hero Turtles for.
Yeah, Teenage Mutant Hero Turtles, Heroes in a Half Shell.
But
if you grew up watching the UK Safe for Children version.
Yeah.
But I think we wanted to get you something that you could just have for yourself. We had no idea. Well, I personally didn't have any idea what they meant, but the significance was there, and the history behind it is amazing. Like the part where they would take bones. Like I was like, why bones? Because Raliker was adamant about bones, and then seeing that a lot of the smiths would take pieces of bones of like one of their favored horses that had passed away in battle, or an ancestor, and imbue it into their weapons. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty badass.
yeah, I enjoy all of that type of lore as someone who really enjoys history. Just to add on to the rune since we're on the topic, because Reliker just sent me the link to it. The blank rune
Oh.
is it says a curious appendage to most rune tile sets, called the Word Rune or Odin's Rune. This mute little tile is a topic of much debate among rune readers. It says this blank rune is silence, the zero, and the void of infinite possibilities. The space between words, the breath before speech. Its tarot equivalent is the fool, the sensation of empty space. The Hebrew letter Aleph, Aleph. I'm unsure of the pronunciation of that. The most primordial form of the element of air. So it does have a meaning. It's just that
It's
I
like a
was
wild card.
unaware.
Yeah, so it is kind of
It
like a
is-
wild card. It almost seems like there's a divine intervention kind of thing, like the unknown, right? That's kind of cool.
Yeah, it says when the blank rune appears in a reading, it signals that there has been some complication with your divination. It hints that your question may be ill-informed, or the question you seek may be unknowable or already known for your deepest intuition. It's an invitation to meditate and wait, or it says, let's be honest, to throw that sucker back into the bag and draw another tile.
Yeah.
So yeah, I like that it's hey, well, I guess it makes sense because it's Odin, because Odin, he seeks knowledge. He is of knowledge. So to pull something like this is like, look, you shouldn't know that, or you already know that. So,
So
I really
It would
like
come down to the diviner then. So if you're casting your own runes, you would have to go with whatever your gut says.
it. Yes, yeah, probably follow your instinct of like, oh, okay, I asked this question. I feel like it will just have to wait to find out, or be like, oh, no, I should know the answer to this, and then you need to do a deeper search. So I can appreciate that. I like that. I also want to state, I was talking earlier how the rune, like each rune represents like a god, but it's not necessarily a rune per se, but like the runes put together, because it's the alphabet for Norse mythology, right? So like you would take a bunch of runes, and that would equal up like into a name of a god.
That is really, really interesting. So, John, with the runes, is it something that you would try to use for divination? Or would you be using it for something else?
I generally just like, because I've never had a rune set. I normally would do something like when I made my wife her box of like, or flower box for her sunflowers. I would generally like carve the runes of like a god for flowers or something like that in the box, and then just offer like um I'd have to pull up the god. I don't remember it offhand right now. But I think it was a Dune, and she is like the goddess of youth and stuff like that, poetry, I think. But she's also, I think she is represented by like apples. So
Uh-huh.
I think it was apples. I might be thinking of a different god, honestly. Like, I'm not perfect with this, I'm gonna be honest. I
Yeah.
enjoy it. I utilize it to the furthest of my beliefs, but I am by no means someone who could perfectly recite this all to some people, like people try to with the Bible, right?
Exactly.
I
And
want to
you
make
know,
no preconceived notions that I am like the know all of this. I will Google, I will read, I will get a book, but I definitely do not just have the means to every question.
and if you think about it, monotheistic religions where there's only one god is kind of easy mode because you can say it's this god who did all of this stuff. But whenever you deal with multiple gods, then you're going into, okay, which one was it?
Yeah,
That deals
it
with-
takes time.
You praise
Sure.
one, you insult another one.
Uh-huh.
Possibly in some
So-
form, yeah. I am talking about Gerda, though, the wife
Uh-huh.
of Freyr. Freyr.
Okay. Uh-huh.
She is the god of fertility and agriculture. So I would draw, I carved into the wood the runes of Gerda, and then you offer the sacrifice, whatever it was for her stuff. You can do it. I guess it depends on your belief. You could just keep doing it and making sure that whatever you plant in that box is, gonna keep thriving if you believe in that, or you could do a one-time thing, a one-time like sacrifice of something. So
I think that's really interesting about the whole thing about sacrifice because even in my culture's belief, everything has to have a sacrifice because it's like a life for a life, and a lot of people will find it kind of uneasy. But like, it's a common practice that if a child or somebody you love is sick, you would in turn hold a feast, and you would slaughter like or butcher like pigs or cows in order to offer it up to replace the life that you're trying to save. And it's just like everything. I think that's the thing that today they're like, you don't have to do any of that. But a lot of the older religions are like, no, things demand, gods demand a price. It's not.
I mean,
just,
it's the law of equivalent wow, I am not able to say that word.
equivalent.
Yep, exchange.
Mm-hmm.
It's you. I believe in that. You can't receive something, without giving something, whether it's time, blood, items. I think it's a fair exchange.
And I know it's not as extreme as like having to unalive animals, because like I know some people who practice like more like new age versions of like offerings to different types of gods. They have like favorite alcoholic drinks that that type of god would like. Like there was a god, and I won't say his name because things become chaotic whenever I say the name, so I won't mention it, although it will still pop up whether I want to or not. But it was supposed to be something like sweet drinks, right? Liking sweet things. I forgot where we were reading it, but there was like this new book where people were trying to bring it back, that he favors things that are more on the sweet side. So like a bourbon, you would offer a bourbon and things of that nature. But so it doesn't have to be all about spilling blood or anything like that. But,
No, I mean you
yeah.
have like, eh, again, I'm not very good at the pronunciations, but like Iger,
Uh huh.
who is a Norse god known as the King of the Sea.
Hmm.
But and everyone's like, oh, that's cool, King of the Sea, whatever. But he's also credited with beer and brewing, which,
Yeah.
I mean, way more awesome than just being of the sea. But yeah, I mean, if you were, if I was trying to brew alcohol, I would probably offer hops and other things as like
Or a successful
offerings to
fishing
try
trip.
and, yeah, something to hope for a prosperous brew, I guess. And I'm sure some people are like, they don't understand that, but I think that's the whole purpose of this, is like, if you don't understand it, then that's fine. But it's it is what it is for some people, and I find comfort in exchanging things or items for what I believe is hopefully a blessing by that said God.
Yeah. I've
'Cause
done similar stuff too. Not
Oh,
quite with rune etching, but with like little sacrifices and offerings, I guess.
anything in particular?
Just whatever it kind of calls.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the important part about this. This is not like, oh, I'm making hamburgers today. Let me offer sacrifice. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's more like on things that maybe you care about, or for me, for the planter, it was like, it doesn't have anything to do with me. I'm never gonna touch this planter again unless my wife asks me to move it. So like, it wasn't for me in the first place. It was me trying to wish her flowers health.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's, it's not, like I said, it's not something you would just do for like, oh, I'm building this desk. I hope this desk lasts forever. It's like, now you're just being ridiculous. Well, I don't know, but I mean, then again, if you're like, this is a desk from fucking 1700 and it was my great great grandfather's and I'm fixing it, I could understand bestowing, carving runes and trying to like make a good desk or make it last, like, stuff like that. But you're probably not going to try to like sacrifice stuff and offer runes to like an IKEA desk.
Yeah. It makes sense though because like if it really matters to you, that's whenever you feel that compulsion, that pull, that okay, this is a big deal. I got to do something about it. Like you get that calling, that feeling that you need to do something.
Yeah, you follow your instincts. Or
Like the
you
one
know,
example that I would have is when I came home from work the one morning. Um, I, I guess one of my steps bumped into something, and when I looked down, there was a little crabapple. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of weird because there's no crabapple trees really nearby. It's about 8 houses down the block. But then a raven landed on our garage and cawed at me several times. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's the raven's crabapple. But it didn't fly past me, it was just there. So I took the crabapple and I put it up on the railing of our deck before going in. And then in about 10 minutes I came back out and it was gone.
That's
So it's
cool.
like I was
Yeah.
there at the right time. Everything was aligned perfectly, and then it was my choice to whether I gave the apple to the raven or just left it. I could have crushed the apple and kicked it to the ants. Like,
And now we have the ravens who come around, which is kind of
And I-
interesting because then the kids have found some really beautiful feathers. Like,
yeah, they keep dropping feathers for them.
Uh-huh.
and I think as far as North mythology goes too, I mean, obviously we have the famous two, Hugin and Munin, which mean thought and memory or mind. But ravens in Norse mythology are generally something that indicates a wise, all-knowing messenger, and they're birds of prophecy, protectors, and helpers. So it, for people who don't know like why you're saying what you're saying and don't understand,
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
just to clarify here, like why you're discussing why it was a raven specifically.
And that's really interesting because ravens are tied many times to death, like the afterlife,
Mm-hmm.
and across many cultures, right? And I've always felt a kinship to them. A lot of people are like, oh, I've heard people be afraid and think that they're a sign or an omen or something like that. But to me, I've always felt that ravens were these beautiful creatures that just could travel between the veil, right? They just had this really mystical element to them, almost as much as owls. Because owls, to me too, like I never encounter them, but when I do, I get a very eerie feeling, like they're very symbolic to me as well. But I've seen maybe 2 owls in my entire lifetime, and they've happened in very important moments of my life, right? Like I saw a great horned owl that time that right after my father had passed,
Yeah.
and usually that is you know, a carrier of messages from the other side. People believe. I mean, I believe in something similar to that. But yeah, ravens have always now they come over all the time. Usually one in particular. You saw that one today too,
Yeah.
who just comes around and just starts cawing. It's kind of like, but it's a different sound. Like they're like having a conversation with us.
Mm-hmm.
We were actually extracting honey today, and it was just watching what we were doing, and I mean really intently watching, just kind of hanging out, seeing what we were up to
Yeah.
while we were extracting honey. So yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Just to add on to the owls too. The owls again in Norse mythology are they symbolize wisdom, kindness, helpfulness, and an unthinkable magic and knowledge.
Oh.
Like they're the source of unthinkable magic.
Wow.
So yeah, owls are also, like you said, very important to Norse mythology as well. Symbolism of the afterlife and death as well. So they're pretty popular.
I think that's. Go
I
ahead.
believe in the mythology, Odin had 5 pets, right? He had 2 birds, 2 wolves, and an owl. And the owl was, like the one thing that he symbolized with like great wisdom. because the Hugin and Munin he would send out, and what they saw, they would come back, and then he'd be able to see what they saw.
Mm-hmm.
Like, but it wasn't the same as like the knowledge he was gaining with the owl, you know.
Do any of you know why he only had like one eye?
Uh,
Isn't
he
it?
he the I believe, and don't get me wrong, because I'm sure that this is wrong. I believe he gave the eye away so that he could see through the ravens, through Hugin and Munin. Like they ate his eye.
Oh.
That was why he was able to see through them. Like that was the sacrifice he made. Like he wanted to be able to gain their knowledge of, oversight, being able to fly and all that stuff. And so he sacrificed his eye to them. Going back to the exchanging thing. I believe that's what it was. I don't exactly remember.
Yeah, I don't remember either.
Wow.
There's been a large amount of muddiness to the lore and stuff like that for all of it, so I don't know if that's 100% accurate.
Well, it is an ancient belief system. I think a lot of people forget that. They like to call any other spiritual belief, I feel sometimes, is mythology. And then they call Christianity something else, right? But it never made sense to me why people couldn't still follow that, right? If that's their belief system, if they believe in the older gods that came before Christianity, but they would always call it mythology, meaning it was a myth. I don't know. I find a lot of hubris behind that. I think that's why I love American Gods so much. The book, Neil Gaiman talks about the old gods, and it's so wicked. Have you heard about that book before, John?
I have not.
So American Gods, I'm not going to go into it, but there's this one god who starts off, and you have a hint that he is in fact Odin, right? And he's come back because it's all based on the power is getting weaker because you don't have as many people believing in you anymore. And how the new gods' names are, what was one? One was Media, that was the name of one god. And they were so prideful on them being the new gods, but then the old gods come back. So you're talking about like Odin and Ostara, and how they kind of show them how it used to be. And it's pretty wicked. It's such a great book.
I'm gonna check this out.
Yeah.
I googled it. I like that it's by Neil Gaiman.
Uh-huh.
I love that everything kind of comes full circle. He recently was in the news, so
Oh, was he really?
not for good things.
Oh, God.
Yeah, sexual assault allegations. But yeah, I was just like, oh wait, I recognize that name.
My
But
goodness.
yeah, just to go back real quick to the Odin's eye thing, it says he wanted to know everything and gain wisdom and the knowledge of things hidden from him. So a Mimir, who recognized Odin as his former king, demanded that Odin give him one of his eyes as a pledge. Odin agreed, gouged out his right eye, threw it into the well. He then drank from the water of wisdom and gained a vision that transcended the physical realm.
Oh, okay.
Whether or not that plays into being able to see through his ravens, I can't 100% tell you that right now, but I wouldn't put it past that. But yes, he took his eye, threw it into a well for knowledge, power, which, I mean, that's Odin in a nutshell, knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the time we've got today. Thank you for joining us on Trauma Cupcakes. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.